statue of Liberty started shaking her fist, and the eagle will fly, and it's gonna be here. I brought to you courtesy of the red, white, and blue.
It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their families. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and today is going to be a very special program that we've been talking about here for a while, trying to get him up here, and it's going to be a paid political show, and his name is Steve Guede. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about him. We're going to learn things about him like I did, and I've been wanting to, so stay where you are. Good stuff. Get you in. Welcome to Veterans Issues. This is Ken Rollins, and today's guest is running for Senate District 12. His name is Steve Guede. I have so much problem with that, but it's spelled G-U-E-D-E, but it's pronounced G-E-E-D-E-E. But anyhow, we're going to learn a lot about him. I've already learned a whole lot that you don't know, but he's running for that District 12 in the Senate for the state of Alabama. And so let's go ahead and greet him to the show here at Veterans Issue. He's also a Navy man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ken. I'm glad you invited me down here today.
You see what I put in front of you there?
I sure did. Isn't that pretty?
You recognize that, eh?
Y'all know that says Navy, not the Marine Corps on there. Get that straight.
And that's yours, by the way.
Good deal.
I knew you was coming, so I baked you a hat.
I will wear it with pride.
I hope so. Steve, let's, for the folks out there, this is a get to know. And I want the people to know everything they need to know about you, like where are you from?
Originally, it's hard to say. You know, my wife, people ask my wife the question, where's your husband from? She says, he's from all over.
Yeah.
Well, as a child, even though I wasn't a military brat, my mother kind of had a little wandering spirit. And so I was born in Wichita, Kansas. I've lived in Oklahoma. I've lived in California. I've lived in Arizona. I've lived in Washington State. I've lived in the state of Illinois. All but Washington State was as a child, which I didn't really have a choice in.
You took a bath after you left California, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I've washed my hands from California long ago, and I will never go back.
That's all that counts, really.
I always tell folks, the poor state, there's a lot of good people there, but God did the big flush on that place a long time ago, and it's been spiraling down since then.
Well, you know, being a travel person is not a bad thing. A lot of people sit here in this little focus that we got in Georgia and Alabama, Mississippi, and you don't see those other things that make you appreciate some of the things that we got here, some of the beauty of Alabama.
Well, that's what folks want to know. I'm here because this is the place I chose to raise my children. I had never been here. I came here sight unseen. My brother-in-law, who I moved up to Washington State to be closer to my one sister, who we're still very close. He had a sister, met a fella in the Air Force. They met in the Air Force. They came down here, and my brother-in-law came to here on vacation, and he said, man, I think I'm going to move to Alabama. And I said, well, you know what? Let's do it. So we all moved, our whole families. And I've raised my children here, and I've been a part of Alabama ever since, and Alabama's a part of me.
And you, I put that Navy hat on because I read in your bio that you served in the United States Navy as opposed to any other Navy, but you did serve in the Navy, and for that I appreciate. And my dad was in the Navy. I was in the Army. I don't know why I went to the Army and he was in the Navy, but that's a good thing. Now, let's get down. You're seeking to be the senator for District 12, which is like Talladega, Calhoun, Clay, St. Clair.
It's all of Calhoun. The St. Clair part is out.
It is out?
It has been redrawn,
redistricted
2010. They did the redistricting. They approved it last year, the year before.
Okay.
So we're all of Calhoun, Mumford, and the narrow piece of Talladega that kind of parallels Mumford down to western Clay County.
Okay. So you got a lot of rural people in there that are not used to the big cities, and you're not talking big city stuff. You're talking about taking care of the folk.
I'm talking about wanting to be Alabama's or District 12's representative to Montgomery, not Montgomery's representative to District 12.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. I think that we've been going along for too long with people not paying attention to what's going on in Montgomery, because we trust, well, they're just good old boys from Alabama who are doing the right thing. But let's be clear, you've been down there. You know that what happens in Montgomery is the same stuff that happens in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And over the past several years, it has gotten more and more like D.C. and more dependent on the dollars that D.C. dangles on a big carrot string in front of them, and they're all grasping for it. And you know, hate to say it, but they have sold our children down the river.
But Steve, it would probably not surprise you to know I had to go down one time. I got a notice the day before to come down and testify before a Senate committee on an issue that involved veterans. And I drove like a maniac early in the morning going down Highway 21. I get there, and the Senate committee was like this, under the table with their iPhones, texting each other and talking to each other, and never heard a word that me and my commissioner were saying. You know, it's like, okay, we'll set this up. You come in. And then they voted opposite of what the presentation we'd made. But it's, you know, like I said, I want to take a bath when I leave there sometime too. But it's really not. Now, this Senate District 2, I'm going to go into all of why you decided to run, how that came about. But I do want to know why, let the people know why you ran, why you decided to run. The driving force that said, yes, I'll take this on, a monumental task.
Well, I've been a grassroots Tea Party leader for 5 years. I've been working in the county and out of the county on the conservative issues for a long time. I've been a Republican my whole life. I'm a lifelong Republican, even in some of the weird places I've lived, which, you know, some of the places I call political purgatory,
Yeah.
that I escaped from. I've been a Republican, and you know, going down to Montgomery, you have to fight. You have to fight people who should be doing what's right by their neighbors, just to do the right thing. Because they don't really want you and me to come down there. They want folks who work for lobbying firms with big checkbooks hanging out of their pocket to come down and talk to them about issues. Well, you know what? This state isn't for sale. My neighbors aren't for sale. Your members of your church aren't for sale. You know, that's ridiculous. I'd like to go down there and take the door off the offices out of all of them. All of the offices in the state building, because you know what? It's the people's building. It doesn't belong to the politicians. Right. It belongs to us. And what happens behind those closed doors, like I said, is the same kind of things that happen in D.C., and it shouldn't be. Those folks are supposed to represent us. Those folks have to come back here and interact with us, go to the churches, see us at the Walmart, talk to us at the gun store, shake our hand at the park, and then turn around and do the opposite of what's in the best interest for their neighbor. I can't stomach that kind of thing.
You say they're going along to get along?
Well, going along to get along. You know what happens in a lot in politics? They say that it's going along to get along, but I say it's going along to get paid.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
I'm not a man who likes to mince words, and I think that political correctness is a waste of time. Political correctness is the way that the liberal left try to get us to shut up and not say what's on our mind and not be honest about it. I've talked to folks in the Republican Party for years who say, well, gee, Steve, we're just not good at propaganda in the Republican Party. I said, no, that's not true. I said, Republican operatives are just as good at propaganda as the Democrat operatives. What Republicans are not good at is telling the truth and standing by it with their chin out.
Like I saw Sarah Palin saying to tell the terrorists that waterboarding is the way we baptize.
Right. You know, the media had a firestorm when she says things like that. But you know what? How is that different than a terrorist cutting the head off of one of our soldiers or one of our contractors that's just there to drive a truck?
Oh, we got to do this politically correct. Now, when we come back in the second part, I want to talk about something that seems to be a centerpiece of your run, and that is Common Core. And we're going to talk a lot about that, and you want to remind me about the opt-out, because these are some things that I said a friend of mine, Steve Hurst, did not take the pay raise because he said, how can I take a pay raise when the teachers are not getting one? And we're going to talk a lot about that. So we got to go. She keeps telling me here it's time to go. Well, let's come back and talk more with Steve. Stay where you are. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. We're talking with Steve Guede, and Steve is a candidate for the Senate District 12. And we were talking before we went to break. We're talking about Common Core. That's one of his standards for his campaign. Steve, when we left, we were talking about that, and I wanted to address it more. Your main part of your campaign that I've seen it has been about Common Core. You're against Common Core, and I'd like you to elaborate on that, if you would, so folks understand why.
That's right, Ken. One of the reasons that pushed me over the edge to come to run for this race is the Common Core issue. My competitor is the single biggest roadblock to repealing Common Core in the state legislature. We've had the votes for 3 sessions in a row now to repeal it. Governor Bentley is for the repeal of Common Core. But Dale Marsh refused to let it come to a vote. And I'll tell you what it is. You know, they talk about that it's a state standard that 45 states signed on to through a process called Interstate Compact. Interstate Compact is a constitutional process that states can do certain business with each other, and they sign a compact and they all agree to do business this certain way with each other. However, it is against the state and federal constitution for the federal government to take over our school system. Well, they sold it as a bill of goods as a state interstate compact until they saw what was happening. And what was happening was that the Department of Education was feeding money into NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, like the CCSSO, the National Association of School Administrators, and the Governor's Association was one of the places where they first sold the Common Core Compact to the other states, and nobody even knew what it was. Nobody saw what the curriculum was. Nobody saw what it was about. They just said we were going to create standards across state lines so that everybody could be equal. Well, first of all, I don't want my child to be just equal or common,
There you go.
as you might say. I don't want my child to be common. I have excellent students in my household. They work hard to get good grades. So we're not going to try to dumb my children down with a common curriculum. And the curriculum really isn't what it pretends to be either. Right now they're saying, well, the curriculum is rigorous. And I ask, well, what does rigorous mean? They say, well, it's rigorous, and it means this, that, and the other thing, and they do some double talk about what rigorous means. I like to tell the story about a young man who came to me in January and came to our forum over at the Anniston City Meeting Center, and he talked about his straight A student was struggling with the new Common Core curriculum because of the way that they make them do it is ridiculous for his third grader, and the third grader can't understand it. The third graders had to go see doctors and psychologists because doesn't understand why they went from a straight A student to a failing student. So he was at the school trying to get answers as to how he could help his child better. And the principal looked at him and said, well, if you can't teach the Common Core, you shouldn't be teaching your children.
Wow. So you're saying the Common Core, that would be like saying we're going to make your children average. They're going to look just like everybody in California but now they opt out. I know Bobby Jindal, the governor of Louisiana, just did that. Do you know how many is opting out? Or?
Well, there's 45 states who initially signed on to it. There's 27 now that are running away from it like it's on fire.
Wow.
That are either put a hold on it or trying to get legislation to stop it completely and get out from underneath it. Problem is that some of the big states like California and New York are the only ones who really got the money to implement it. Everybody else didn't get any money. They promised it, and they said, we'll promise you some money under the race to the top. Here, fill out this form though, but this form says to even apply for this money for the race to the top, you have to sign on to Common Core 100%. Now this is a federal government telling you this. Now, they've signed on to it to implement it 100%, but they didn't get any money to implement it. So there's $2.8 billion in bond initiatives that need to be gone through the legislation to be able to afford to pay for Common Core to begin with. The state doesn't have the money. We have a reduced tax revenue because the economy is still in the tank. So how are we going to pay for this? Through a bond initiative. Those of you folks who don't know, when they talk about bond initiatives, when they talk about fines, fees, or gimmicks to raise revenues, this is taxation.
Thank you.
A bond initiative is a tax. People don't have a say in these bond initiatives, but we have to pay for them.
Under any other name. Now, let me do something for you. As a layperson, I know you know a lot about this. I'm learning from you about the Common Core. Because I've seen in the national media and stuff, they talk about the age groups, some of the stuff that they're teaching, and I've seen this from lots of people, it's actually pornography from where my values are. Third graders and fourth graders. Can you touch on that with
There's some books that they talk about being exemplar reading, and these exemplar reading are books that they're telling the kids that you should read because these are good books. One of them is The Bluest Eye. The Bluest Eye talks about child rape and molestation. And they recommend you read this book. Now they're telling a child, a young child, I want you to read this book about child rape and molestation, but don't you dare read a Bible in school. Because reading a Bible in school is bad, but reading a book about child rape and molestation is good. Now you tell me what America we live in when that's the case.
And I've seen teachers push back on this. Teachers, that's not my value. I'm having to teach something that goes against my, you hear a lot of that?
I hear a lot of that from a lot of teachers. But the teachers are afraid to speak aloud because they've been threatened with their jobs. And again, they tell you this, all they're allowed to say is that these standards are rigorous. Well, you know, rigorous is sidestepping the issue. Rigorous is just a word they made up. Apparently they took a poll and said a rigorous was a good word to use.
Wow.
It really means nothing. It's a tap dance word. You know, I want my standards to be excellent. I want my standards to be great. I want my standards to be better than the state next to me. You know, one of the things that makes states competitive in business is that your school standards and your test scores are better than the state next to you. So if we want to make everybody the same, where are we going to pull from the pool of kids who are the better kids? Yeah. And not better as far as human beings, but better as far as students.
We're down to a couple of minutes. I want to make sure we get in here. We talked about, one of the things I talked about, we got some agriculture in the area and we got businesses, but we got our state, you talked about this out in the green room, that the state is buying from foreign countries stuff that we have in this, you mentioned cattle and the slaughter and stuff like that. We're spending our dollars.
I have some friends who are cattlemen, and they talk about how they have to take their cows, ship them to Texas, have them slaughtered, have the meat inspected, bring it back here to Alabama, have it inspected, and then sell it. Why can't we open up a slaughterhouse here in Alabama? I'll bet you somebody in Calhoun County has a piece of land that they'd like to put a slaughterhouse on so that we don't have to take cattle across state lines to have it processed. How much money would that save the consumer at the store? You know, somebody was telling me a story about Coleman, produces a lot of concrete. Yeah. We, as the state of Alabama, to build roads, import concrete from Brazil to build our roads. Why can't we buy it from Coleman? Yeah. Why can't we take the taxpayers' money from Coleman and buy the product in Coleman? Why can't we have, I don't know, instead of sending off a contract to a national contractor who builds schools, why can't we get a local contractor?
We buy steel from Brazil too. We run out of time this segment. While we go to a break, your hat fell up under the table down there. You got to put that Navy hat on. When we come back, I got to get your hat back. But we got to go to a break. But that's what we got. What you're talking about, we got to do is spend our dollars to help Alabama. We're down to run out of time. Stay where you are. We come back. We got more with Steve, and I hope you got something out of that Common Core, folks, scares anybody that learns anything about it. So stay with us. Get you a pen. Be right back after this. Stay right there. Welcome back. We're talking with Steve Guede, and we're talking. He's seeking the Senate District 12 with the state of Alabama, and we were talking about Common Core. Now we're going to, Steve, I have one of the things that we're inundated with commercials, ads for political, and the one thing I'm talking about the state locals. I'm talking about not just Senate and House, but everybody is running a public service commission. Run against Obama. But last I checked, Senate 12 didn't cover Washington, D.C. That there's some laws that's being passed up there that affect Alabama, but you as a senator would have not much more to do about them than I would as a voter. But they're Obama this, they got a buzzword, Obama, but I haven't heard you talk about anything about Obama. You've been talking about what you would do for the school teachers, the farmers, and the kids. It's just, what's your thoughts on that?
The Republican National Committee, I believe, did some polling, and the buzzword that you have to use as a Republican candidate is, you're fighting against Obamacare and Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. Mm-hmm. I'm not running against any of those people. I'm not. Right. So, and let's be honest, the hero that stopped us from spending an enormous amount of Alabama tax dollars on Obamacare is Governor Bentley. Put the roadblock in place for that. The legislature were rubbing their hands together wanting to get to some of that startup money, but Governor Bentley is the one who put that roadblock in place. It was a campaign promise that he kept. He's also, Governor Bentley also, thank God, in the last week, has come to our side about the opt-out for the Common Core. And the Common Core opt-out means that you can opt out of all the testing for your children, which is just the data collection for these national and international corporations and companies who run the testing to collect data on your children to market to your children. And in New York City, it's been discovered that they're even putting product placement inside the testing so that your child knows what Mug Root Beer is, Barbie is, iPod, these other things in a school test. Again, are our children for sale to international conglomerates? Or are our children, and should we be making these kind of decisions at a local level and at a state level for our children?
Well, one of the things I think about on the Common Core, and I'm a layperson, I know some people are school teachers. I can't imagine how I'd be with convictions of my own to know that I was being required, and that's the word, required to teach against my principles. And I can think the law of averages says there's a lot of teachers like you and I that don't agree with that kind of curriculum.
I have talked to, I can't even count how many teachers, if I took my shoes off, who disagree with this teaching to the test of Common Core. They hate it, they hate it, they hate it. We've just got out from underneath No Child Left Behind, and this is No Child Left Behind 5.0. Now, whatever it was sold as is not what it really is, and that's what people got to remember. We get sold a bill of goods. Nobody knew what Common Core was. There's 5 people in the entire country who have no educational background who wrote the standards. Certain groups were paid to promote it, and certain groups were threatened to be quiet, like the teachers' associations and the teachers, to be quiet about it, or their job was in peril. Okay, why would you have to threaten somebody to be quiet about a thing if it wasn't bad? You know, and we talked about teachers earlier, you know, on the commercial break. The teachers wanted a 2.5% pay increase this year. 2.5%. They say there's no inflation because the interest rates haven't gone up. Has anybody bought gasoline, beef, pork, paid a power bill lately? Yeah. Inflation's here.
We run out of time. I got 1 minute, less than a minute. Tell me why people should vote for Steve Guede.
I'm not in this. I have no personal gain for running for this office. I have no business that's going to benefit. It's going to be hard on me because I plan on keeping my regular daytime job while doing this, which means I want to serve the people of Alabama and the people of this district. I think that the professional politicians turn a public office into not only their career path, but then they turn it into a family business because then they get their sons, daughters, nephews to run for it.
Show me you're going to wear that hat.
Shoot, yeah, I'm going to wear that hat. I'll be wearing, hey, if y'all see me knock on your door with this hat,
good luck to you, my friend.
You'll know who I am.
Thank you for coming. Good luck in the race.
All right.
We got to go with This Is For You. We salute. We're out of here.